This is a Founding Media podcast.
Austin is a place that's known for being weird, and a big part of that reputation comes from the important role that art plays in our culture. Creative people come to Austin from all over to witness and appreciate the work of other creative people. And one of the beautiful things about Austin is that you don't need a ticket to a museum to experience art. You can find art all over the city, sometimes even on the street. Today, we're excited to have artist Chase Meyers on the show. Chase is the man behind some of the most iconic pieces of art that you can find on the literal streets of Austin. A native Austinite, Chase's work has contributed enormously to Austin's culture. But before we jump in, I'd like to thank our sponsors who are also devoted Austinites. Austin Title, Vista Lending, House of Stroob, and Nest Financial. Check out the businesses in our show notes to spread even more good Austin vibes. And speaking of Austin vibes, without further ado, here's episode 3 of Vibe Austin with Chase Meyers.
Say you wanna know how deep my love is. You say you long to hear those words of mine. So I ask, how deep is the ocean? How deep is the color in your eye? A simple glance, your eyes are mine, and I lose my breath and move and wonder. My words fall flat in all my lines until the tide pulls me under. You say you wanna know how deep my love is. You say you long to hear those words of mine. So I ask, how deep is the ocean? How deep is the color in your eye?
Chase Meyers, welcome to the show, Vibe Austin.
Thank you so much.
This first season is all about music and art, and want to learn more about you and what you've done. Tell the audience.
Well, I grew up in Austin, Texas, local, and had the opportunity to do a number of projects here in town that I've been really proud of, but I think a lot of people have
know about. We guarantee before before people, guess or let them guess what you've done. We guarantee that they've seen your work. It's pretty nice to say you've seen my work, even though you don't know. But you've seen my work.
It's sprinkled around town, and
it's amazing.
I'm sure you've driven by it.
I'm super happy to have Chase here to talk about it. And being a native Austinite too, such a unicorn, such an interesting story just in and of itself. But I love your background too. Like the people who might not realize that distinction of like when you're pursuing something in school and you kind of start to realize, oh, I really like this angle of design or this angle of, what you talked about. So talk about that a little bit.
I stumbled into something called industrial design.
Okay.
I was going to go into architecture, and during the tour, we went and looked at the architecture studio, and it was very interesting, but very white and starch and clean. And then they took me down this dark hallway and through a bunch of double doors, and then they opened up this other area that was the industrial design department, and there was models hanging from the ceiling and wild things on the walls and wood shop, plastics lab, metal shop. And
were you in heaven?
Just an array of stuff everywhere, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but this is what I'm gonna do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Isn't it nice that at some point in life it's just like boom,
Yeah.
apparent. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I hope that for everyone. I mean, it's a magic, awesome feeling.
So explain to the audience what industrial art design is.
So I like to explain it where architecture would be buildings and graphic design would be 2D print, web kind of, and industrial design is kind of the big gray void in between, where I have friends designing shoes at Nike. I have friends doing furniture. You can do kitchen appliances, computer, just kind of anything that people use. And it also is like the study of, the human interaction with objects. So
Very, very cool. Okay, so do we want to start talking about some of the things that people will recognize?
Well, I went to school for industrial design, and then I found my way into what they now have rebranded as experiential design.
Experiential design.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I found my way to a local establishment here called Ion Art that has done a number of things.
I love Ion Art.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've got quite the name and recognition, and they do, from mom and pop to really cool art installations. And that's where my shift, that was right out of college, so that's where I started shifting into more architectural elements and then what they call experiential graphic design.
Nice. I love Ion Art. Our magazine Founding Austin, we interviewed them years ago, and I got to go interview them in their shop. And I tell you what, it was heaven. I just walk in and you see all kinds of tools, and it's like laser cutters, and you have welding, and you have all these things that, you have lights, and you have just all kinds of things. It was just hard to describe.
For me, it was Santa's workshop.
Yeah.
And just to see it all
Oompa Loompa
come
land.
together.
Yeah.
And if I could be a part and come up with the ideas that they build and see it happen.
I grew up, two of my uncles were welders, and my dad's an auto mechanic. So I grew up using my hand, like tools and things of that nature. So I love tools. But going in there, and it was having a different respect, because these people were not just, a welder or a mechanic. They were like creating art with that, which was something the next level for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, not too much suspense. We won't tease the audience forever, but as we transition into what it is we are so excited to talk to Chase about, I want to preface and sort of make this, kind of segue about how much I love signage in Austin, Texas. Yeah. One of my favorite things when I moved here back in 2000 was seeing how much thought and money and creativity that businesses would put into their signage.
Right.
And I think about everything from Alamo Draft House to Amy's Ice Creams to Las Bonitas we mentioned earlier, just Threadgills. It goes on, right?
Yeah.
And so I always love that. And so there's one sign now in particular in Austin that it just brings all of that together for me and for everyone. For locals, for tourists. And that sign is the ATX at the corner of 5th and Lamar. We have the creator of that sign with us today. So super exciting. Tell us about it, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So Whole Foods headquarters, it was Whole Foods giving back to the city of Austin with kind of a thank you. So they wanted to do something that was not so much about them. They previously had, Whole Foods spelled out in letters and an old truck there. And unfortunately,
it wasn't the vibe they were looking for.
Yeah, and due to the busyness of the intersection, some cars ended up over there. But so they had to redo it, and they said instead of it being all about us, let's give back, because Whole Foods is originally from Austin, one of the Austin originals. Yeah.
That's a nice little interjection here for our trivia segment that we try to do in each and every show. And
starting with this one.
Right. So welcome to the inaugural trivia section, where myself as a total trivia nerd, and I challenge anyone to a battle.
Gauntlet
my
down.
little catalog brand, Cliff Clavin over here. So I love facts about Austin, and I love to introduce them to new people to Austin, but also sometimes old timers that had no idea. Yeah. And when I have guests in from out of town, and I let them know that the world headquarters of Whole Foods is here at 6th and Lamar, they're like, "Oh, that's great." And I say, "Well, because they started here. And they were like, what do you mean they started here? You know, so an old little building on the corner of 10th and Lamar was the first Whole Foods location back in 1980 when it was started. That building has been, you know, some things since then. It still does stand today, but I just think it's amazing that such a worldwide, you know, Class A institution began here in Austin. I guess not amazing in sort of a I'm surprised way. There's a lot of those, right? But it's just, I mean, Whole Foods, you know?
So definitely if that...
right?
Everyone knows Whole Foods.
We all know. Household name for sure. Especially with its connection with that other company.
So if trivia comes up, 1980...
Right.
Whole Foods, and what was that?
10th and Lamar.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
And they had gone to Ion Art, Greg and Sharon Kashishian, for their first original neon sign.
That's right.
Back then.
Yes, back then.
Wow.
So so that was the connection. And they were actually, I wish I remember. I think they were right around Lamar back then.
Yeah.
Ion Art was.
That seems like everything was.
Yeah.
You know?
And they lived in the studio above it, and they had a small shop, but she made the glass neon herself.
Wow.
And so they kind of started the business right around then as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I guess, I don't know, 2016, how many years later, they had done, you know, projects with Whole Foods a number of times, but there was a project that was coming in with Whole Foods, and we kind of weren't really sure what it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so I told my creative director, you know, whatever this is, you know, it could be nothing, but put me on it.
Nice.
And that turned out to be that corner.
Yeah.
And how we're going to think about that corner and address that corner. And the Whole Foods team did come to us with, hey, let's do some large letters. Let's do maybe ATX. And that was actually one of the things, because back then, ATX wasn't as prominent, right?
Agree, yeah.
We even talked about making it AUS because of the airport, you know. So that was just part of our concepting, or just thinking about what it could be. And now ATX is pretty much known.
Isn't it amazing how just one thought, one idea, one company says, well, let's do this, and everything just kind of picks up.
Yeah, they kind of cemented it in the lexicon.
I think they did, I think your sign did. And it was sort of this, representative. It was a bit of a transition period for me too, where I like to talk about that whole adoption of ATX is a little bit of a signifier of, quote, New Austin. You know, some of us were uncomfortable with it at first. You know, it's like, no, it's Austin, Texas. You know, like we can say the whole thing. You know,
no, wait, I revolt.
Yeah, it's like, wait, not everything has to be so loud. ATX, you know, but now, it's right. But it's just, it is it. And even in my business, I print our address now, ATX, you know, 78701.
And it's cool, you know.
It's just good. It's a brand. It's a brand.
It's a brand.
But your sign probably made it okay for all of us old timers.
Since the show is about Vibe Austin, this is definitely part of the vibe. Was there what kind of thought processes did you go for that? And other Austin signs that you've had to do, or Austin sculptures or things that you've done. Is there any thought process about when you're designing, you know, the thought of the city?
Absolutely. I mean, really, most clients want that. They're asking for that, but it's sometimes hard to achieve or to really pin down what it is within design language. It's kind of one of the things when you see it and it's done right and well, then you kind of know. So with designing ATX, I mean, we did a number of concepts. I believe we did about 5 initial concepts just to get ideas going in different ways. And some of them revolved more about bringing Austin with naming it and having that recognition. And then some were more about, okay, is there going to be some sort of interaction with these letters? So I had a hollow concept, and then I had another more Instagram focused concept where you would be either make the X or you make the T or what, you know, but then would people know what it is when someone's not being that? So that one kind of got cast away. And then we had the slats where we were thinking of different materials. And I think that's where, once we decided with the Whole Foods team that we're going to do a multicolored slat kind of option, and then blend that with the other concept of hollowness, so that people could play inside of it. I think that's where we started thinking about, it wasn't a set idea or statement of multicolor or anything. It was more, let's have a lot of colors and let's have them be random. And maybe that sort of represents all the diversity within Austin, whether that be culturally or with art and lifestyle and all the different walks of life that find their way here and love and enjoy the city like we do. So
I definitely get that. I get that it's not one single message as far as the multicolor. It's how you identify with the fact that it isn't one color, right? So it can represent, for me, it's a melting pot culture that I love about Austin. It's that, you know, we talk on the previous shows, the cowboy meets the hippie, and now it's meets the yuppie, meets the, you know, fill in the blank. And we all get along, and there's something here for everyone. And so the diversity, the acceptance, the sort of tolerance of whatever that looks like for you. And I love that about Austin. It's one of my favorite things about our vibe.
And it's a lot more, I mean, we could have made it burnt orange.
Yeah,
everybody would have understood, or green.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't think it would have had the impact.
Plus, it's so photo ready.
And you see it all the time. You see people that all the time. And what I found interesting, as you mentioned as we were chatting, is that you've developed it to where if it does get vandalized or whatever, you've got new slats you can put in.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we get into the design part, once we chose the concept and we get into actually, all right, now how are we going to build this thing and accomplish some of these things we want to do, we actually did start with a steel frame, steel base that's like 3/4 inch steel water jet letters on the profiles, and then steel tube framing inside, and then we came back with aluminum slats. And we actually made 10 colors and took our time in choosing each one of those colors, but then we gave them an extra, I want to say 10%, but 20, 25 of the slats.
In case somebody hits it with a car,
come back
whatever.
And change them, because unfortunately, but then we also had to think, like I mentioned, that corner has been run over before, so we put it up on a plinth. We added a concrete wall in front. And that's already done its job once, I've heard, and they've had to redo the concrete wall. But really assembling all that together and working with my fabricators and my foreman on how's this really going to work? So.
Which is a super interesting part of what you do in terms of art, is it's got to function, right? It's got to like survive, and it's people, and it's the whole thing. So it's really neat. I imagine that's another layer of your creative process, right? Where kind of, I don't know, rubber meets the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's certainly one of the assets that I bring to the table, is that from working at Iron Art, having things built right in front of me, working with my fabricators, learning how it's actually going to be done is different in my design walk of life. Right. You meet designers that haven't had that experience, and then they just don't know how it's going to kind of be accomplished. And I can always come back, like, I never want it to limit my design. I always want to push the edge. I pride myself in making my estimator there just freak out. But, we have to figure out how it's really going to come to nuts and bolts come together.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so for me, that's a big enjoyment of the process.
Yeah. Let's talk about other art that you've created that you're proud of here in Austin.
Yeah. So my next favorite, I would call it 1A, 1B, along with ATX, is up on North Lamar, right before 183. There's Black Star Co-op it's across the street from, but it's at Red Velvet Events, and it's what we have named Jackie the Jackalope.
Okay.
And it's a 18-foot, 2-inch jackalope sculpture made of Corten steel.
Wow.
Which would actually be the Guinness Book of World Record, because there is a category for that.
Is there?
My fabricator let me know. He looked it up. There was a contest or disgruntled neighbors in Wyoming, Douglas, Wyoming, and somebody made an 8-foot one. The neighbor made a 10-foot jackalope. The other guy came back and made a 12-foot, and then they got it in the Guinness Book of World
Got it.
But apparently you have to pay a lot of money to have them come and verify, and we didn't want to do
We
that.
should get some
And the
sponsors
client-
for that.
So if we do a GoFundMe or something,
Yeah.
maybe we can then get it in the Guinness Book of World Records. But yeah,
It's an unofficial.
it was more
unofficial
record holder. Yeah,
That's really
the
cool.
largest jackalope.
And it's amazing. I mean, if you've been on Lamar, you've seen it in North Lamar, but I was just so pleased when I learned these two signs and these two sculptures rather are tied together through you.
Well, I think it's
I
so
was just
fascinating
getting a trip.
how you found Chase. I mean,
Right.
we got to tell that story.
Sure. Yeah. So
Because you don't have your name on it.
No.
The ATX.
No.
or-
no.
Yeah.
No, it's such
Neither.
it's a very Austin story, right? Chatting it up,
Yeah.
being friendly.
Yeah.
Just rather than looking at your phone when you're having a sit down where you're waiting for people. So long story short, I know Chase's old man Fred really well through my line of work, which is real estate, and Fred Meyers is a long time accomplished real estate man after his former life as a A&R man, right?
Promotion manager,
yeah.
with Warner Brothers.
He should be on the show. We'll have to talk to Fred. Long story short, Fred and I were doing a real estate transaction together, and we were sitting there in the escrow office waiting on documents, whatever, and conversation came around like it did, and something, whether I brought it up or it just came up, ATX sign, and he said, "Oh, my son did that." And I was like, "What do you mean did that?" And so yeah, and so anyway, it just was like, "Wow, Fred, that's amazing." And he has so many stories, and I was kind of like, "God, one more amazing story from Fred." But I just all these years, it's been years, and it's been in my brain, and so it was just so cool that I could reach out and text Fred Myers, and he's like, "Yeah, here's Chase's number," and all of
let's get him on the
this.
show.
And that's Austin.
It's
know?
Austin,
Yeah.
and it's a great story.
Yeah.
I want to hear. I know that you recently you've been an Austinite all your life, and recently you got a job and moved to Colorado for a bit. Now you're transitioning elsewhere.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is, is Austin still home? And do you take it with you? Like, I just want to know how that feels.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have this weird, lucky opportunity to be here for a couple weeks right now, and it just feels like home. And it's changed so much in the past 5 years. We've been gone for about 5 years, and it's really grown up, but it's been growing up with me my whole life.
Right.
Like the skyline's always been changing, and so it's really cool to come back and see that it still has the energy. Yeah. It still has its own sense of cool, and just the art is still there. I was strolling around town today, finding new sculpture and murals and things I hadn't seen before. Yeah, and it's still got the vibe.
Oh, awesome. Austin vibe.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to hear, because being away for a little while, like, are we just we ask ourselves, are we just in a bubble? Are we like, do we is it as special as we think it is? But
you are in a bubble.
Yeah,
you
would say so.
Because
right?
my wife, when we moved away, that was her first time leaving, and she would kind of bring up, it's we lived in Denver. Denver's great. Denver's great, incredible. We have great, but there's just some things that you kind of miss about your hometown, and that could be anywhere. But I was like, no, you have to realize we're from one of the best cities in the country, and it's really special. And that's why every time we come back, you feel that again.
Yeah.
Well, I've been here 20 years, but before that, I lived in smaller cities in Texas, and I don't consider any of them home. I mean, that's where I grew
you got
up.
away
But it's
from
like,
it.
I feel Austin home, and it's not like I'm dying to get back to any of the places I was at. And I mean, there's some good things about the cities, good things about the towns, but like Austin's got so much more. It's like one of the things that we always talk about food on this show.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's, but one of the things that I loved about here is first I came here and I was eating at chain restaurants when I first moved to Austin 20 years ago, because that's what I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to most big cities, and that's you're familiar. The reason chain restaurants are popular is because you know what you're going to get. And so you moved here, not knowing anything else. That's what I started doing, and then gradually started like checking out recommendations. And oh my God, I haven't been to a chain restaurant in over a decade, easily, maybe two.
Easily.
Well, I've been under 20, so maybe at least a decade for sure.
Yeah.
So. Is your experience the same, like going into,
I
those some things you miss here in
that's
Austin?
what I would tell people when I lived in Boston or lived in Denver. Like, we don't go to the chain restaurant. I mean, there's a local alternative in Austin that would be preferred by all of us, whether it be P. Terry's instead of McDonald's, or Thundercloud instead of Subway, and then you just keep moving higher and higher end.
Right.
And that was always, it just seemed very ingrained with Austin that none of these big companies would really work, especially in the core of Austin, because we're not going to go there.
Right.
We're going to go support local businesses and they're better. And
they're transitory restaurants for newcomers until they get to the...
Right. It's a little, stair step of culture shock, like to avoid the culture shock. And you're right. It's what you're used to, and you know what to get, what to expect. You got to meet some people here and ask around before you realize, one, that people will actually tell you the truth and help you. They're not going to steer you wrong, because in some cities the scarcity culture is like, well, if I tell you about my favorite restaurant, then I'm going to have to wait.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not that way here. So there's that. And then, you just have to branch out a little and start to realize that the Keep Austin Weird motto is not just about, the fact that we love to wear flip-flops and shorts everywhere, but it's support local business.
Yeah.
And that's so much ingrained into our culture that it gets into you soon. And if it doesn't, you're bringing your old city with you rather than embracing what's really here.
Well, I'm going to challenge that, because I don't eat at the restaurants for the support local foods. It's because the food's so good.
That too. I mean, come on.
I mean, yes, I agree, and that's noble. But you go to some of these places, and it's like, oh my goodness,
You're
this
right.
is like fantastic.
So if my tangent was going to wrap up, eventually it would have been that it's better because the people are there who make the food, who own the restaurant, right?
We're both right.
We're both right.
The
food
I don't want
is
to take away from the food.
No doubt.
People just
we're not doing it out of altruism and saying, oh, I'm better eat here, so I support local. It's like, it's damn good all the time.
What was the first place that you went to eat when you got back to Austin?
Manuel's.
Yeah.
We went to Manuel's as soon as we could.
Was it you or the wife that said, we got to go there?
My wife.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the ones on the checklist that we got to do.
Yeah.
We've done Taco Deli, breakfast tacos, and then we have to get to ramen Tatsuya. That's one of our favorites.
I've never been there. Ramen
Tatsuya.
Yeah.
There's a couple now. There's
Tatsu. Tatsu is a prolific restaurateur.
Yeah. And they're gonna have a barbecue one coming out soon.
Nice.
I just saw on Ion Art's Instagram feed.
That's how you keep up with everything. It's
basically.
Because they
if they're
do.
Making the sign.
I mean, one of the things I remember of the story whenever I was interviewing them is like, if you've been down any street in Austin, you've seen our work.
That's awesome.
Because it's like they've got so much work in Austin.
Well, that makes sense to me. I didn't realize that they had done the original Whole Foods sign, and so they must have had their thumb on so much of the great iconic signage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's awesome to know.
100%. So you're in Austin now for a couple of weeks. Thoughts as far as one thing we were chatting about, a couple days ago when we were visiting about this show, was how does it feel to be in a different city versus here? And I know that we said this is home, but when you're in a different city, what things do you notice that are different?
I mean,
Boston, for example. You said something.
Yes, Boston has a very tough exterior that it takes a lot longer to kind of get ingrained within the city.
Yeah.
And then you also have to just, once you're in Boston, accept that this is how people are going to be, right? Assholes. And, and that's a bit of
it's
the
endearing
East
in its
Coast.
own way.
So,
it's its own vibe. It's culture.
I would tell people about, Austin's just different. The hospitality, just everybody's nicer. Everybody's more welcoming. It's just, it's a little different than the Southern hospitality.
It is.
It's again, it has its own unique acceptance of everyone, I think, and where people are coming again from all walks of life, and you can find your people here in Austin, and then you see, all the there's a lot less judgment, I guess, and there's a lot less like what are these people, and I guess it started with the hippies and all of that, and Austin got known for that.
Well, we were talking about this the other day. What does Austin, Keep Austin Weird mean to you? Because I think it meant different things to different people. For me, I moved, as I mentioned, 20 years ago, from very conservative parts of Texas, right? And I mean, it's a small cattle town where I was raised. Where it was 100,000 cattle, 15,000 people. We all waved to each other. I mean, a very friendly town, right? But it was definitely more conservative. So I moved to Austin, and I'm not used to seeing, people in industry just with tattoos and earrings, and everything was just fine, and flip-flops and shorts, and I was like, okay, but I was so cool with it. This is like everybody's being authentic. They're just being themselves, and this city welcomes. There's no judgment. It just welcomes. There's no like snickering or nothing like that, which is so to me that keep Austin weird. I was very proud whenever I first moved and said, yeah, this is really cool.
It's
and
like,
so, yeah.
Be your real self.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to try to conform to what you think, Just go ahead, be your real self, and then everyone else is cool with it. And they're going to be their own real self.
Right.
And, a lot of people are weird.
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
And it's okay.
And this
Who
is
wants
a
to
great
be
place
normal?
to do that. Yeah.
It's a great place to do it. And also, even if you haven't found your true, like, man, I'm looking for my tribe. I'm looking for my village. It's like, you can kind of bounce around. You kind of mentioned that even when we were chatting about this podcast about you had different groups that you would sort of enter into and in and out of, and there was always an acceptance. It wasn't like you had to belong to one sort of, clique.
There's sort of always a clique or core group.
Yeah.
And I was sort of the wild card that would come in and out, but I would have 3, 4, 5 of these.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for exploring where you're real,
hanging out on the east side with one group, hanging out on the west side with another, south side. I mean, it all has its own.
I love it.
Its own character.
And the reason I appreciate like Dan asking you about living other places, and I was like, are we in a bubble? Which we are, but to hear from you to say the same things we believe and say to each other, you're living in other places, and it's not just an echo chamber of two guys who love Austin. Certainly you're biased. You grew up here. And,
I'll admit I am,
but yeah, it's just nice to hear. Yeah, we're still keeping that thing that you loved growing up. So yeah.
Favorite things to do in Austin? Even growing up and now.
Growing up. I mean, Barton Springs was, an absolute very often. And the creeks as well. Lake Travis was a big one. You got to find the water in the summer because it is hot here.
Yeah.
But my dad was in the music industry, so I was always finding my way to music. But then, Longhorns and the art scene. It's fun to see Austin grow up now. We just went to the Austin FC game. And like we have a pro team now. This is crazy. And they're good. And it was a hell of a time. Hell of a stadium.
Beautiful. Isn't it? It's such a good experience. The energy in there is like, it's electric. People are just so happy. I love the FC. Yeah.
So like I would always find myself to these social events, Eeyore's birthday, these gatherings of people, and that's where I'd end up, and that could be for food, for sports, for music,
just
for
gatherings,
art.
Gathering.
Yeah. Community. People are out in their homes.
Water.
Yeah. Definitely the water.
First moved here, there was you guys remember Spam Fest?
Spam
Fest?
Yeah.
And I was here, when I first moved here, I think it was here for like 3 or 4 years, and then it went away. I was like, oh.
Dare I drop another piece of trivia?
Yes.
Spam Fest was because it is originally from Austin, Minnesota. Spam.
Really?
Did not know that.
And therefore, they did a little sister city thing with like Austin, Texas, Austin, Minnesota. We'll do a Spam Fest. Didn't last long, as you remember.
No.
But that's what I learned. I think we have our fact checker over
That's
there checking my data here, but I'm going to go with that.
2-in-1 show for you.
Wow. Well, we had to make up for the first couple that we missed the trivia. It was always the intent going in.
I'm going to be that guy. Cliff Clevin, you guys are going to be like, enough, dude.
No, that's great. Had no idea.
I remember that when I moved here. And that's, when I did move here too, I was indoctrinated quickly to restaurants. We talked about how it took a little while to find that part of Austin for you and for some, but I happened to move here for a girl. I always say men only move for 1 or 2 reasons. It's jobs or girls. Yeah. I came for a woman, and she is an Austin native and talked to me about how many restaurants there are per capita. And I was told at the time there are more restaurants per capita, right?
Oh,
than anywhere. And it rung true just from how many I could see and go to and enjoy. And then also, you know, just that Austin really embraced the food culture. And this was years before there were James Beard nominees and all of the things. But we've always enjoyed and valued our food.
And the happy hour.
Oh, yeah.
No city embraces the happy hour like Austin. I mean, living in Boston, where they banned the happy hour pretty quickly.
That's good stuff.
They took too much advantage of it. But that's your way to find new restaurants. Just go a happy hour.
Yeah, that's right.
I have a friend, and that made a spreadsheet of all the happy hours in Austin, and he keeps it updated. It's like the secret, nice. Spreadsheet. So I've got to always like text him. I was like, "Is this thing updated? Because I want to go." And it tells you the specials of the week and what to eat. So there's.
I used to push out a happy hour list to my clients, and kids eat free.
Yes,
kids eat free is another cool thing about Austin, and I love to tell people coming here that. We are a family-friendly city, but not so that if you have your kids with you for dinner, it has to be McDonald's.
Right.
We are a margarita kids meal kind of town, right? Not for the kid.
Did you coin
Not
that
for
phrase?
Yeah, wait.
Margarita happy meal kind of town.
Right here on this show right now, I did. But it's like the parent can enjoy yourself and have good food.
Yes.
Have a little margarita, and then the kids can have a fun time too. I love that about this city, that we embrace our family culture, but not in a super dialed down way.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not the purple margaritas.
No, don't do it.
Not two
Don't
of
do
those.
it.
I'll let the audience who's not from town figure that one out.
Figure that out. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you see Austin becoming next? It's like you've been here all your life. You've moving it out. What do you see for the city?
Well, now I mean, you have this tech sector that's been blowing up so much, which is exciting as well, and it's bringing people a lot more transplants, every year than anywhere else. I think
Feels
still
that way.
just about.
Feels
But
that way.
I think with the way Austin's been growing up, and I think Austin will still keep its identity, and that it'll transform the people to the town rather than have the people transform the town.
That's what we're hoping. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the show, is just like to make sure we have people that have been here that have been the spirit of Austin and what it means to them.
Yeah.
Because it's such a great thing.
And it's still casual. It's still flip-flops and shorts.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll do business and work as well, but it's hot out here. Can we be comfortable?
I have not worn a tie for 20 years.
Right? You don't really need a tie here.
It's what's amazing also. We're not a slacker culture except when we want to be, right? Except when we're at Barton Springs, whatever. What I meant to say by that is, yes, we're casual, but when it comes time to design something that won't fall apart, or do a real estate transaction that matters, or all of the different things Dan does, like, we hustle.
Right.
We grind. We will, but we can do it in shorts if we want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about the
I love being able to show up to a meeting in shorts and, or just coming from walking the dog and it's like, just here's.
Yeah.
Austin has a good amount of the work smarter mentality.
Yeah. And everybody understands and just gets it. You don't have to worry about like
trying to explain yourself.
Should I? Yeah. You don't have to. It's like,
because you'll be judged on your intellect and what you bring to the table. And not just like, I dressed the part today. I mean, there's a time for that, and I enjoy that
and
too.
You can get dolled up if you need to.
You can.
We have that too. For that.
Yeah, we have that too. We have, the gala season is intense here, and you can get the dinner jacket on if you want to.
For our next show, one of the trivia questions we should do is, how many nonprofits there is in town?
I agree. It's a staggering number. So if you want to get dolled up to support a cause or whatever the case may be, we have that too. And I think that kind of sums up Austin as, yes, we have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we just kind of offer a little bit of something for everybody.
As you, to your question, what Austin's going to be, I think it's going to be even more diverse. I mean, stuff like F1 and Coda coming here. That was right before I left. I was able to go to the first one. I mean, that international element, like these different festivals, obviously South by Southwest,
which is a
the
big
pandemic
thing,
and everything. Now everything's getting back to normal, but that brings more of an international element, and Austin's becoming almost a globally known city.
Right.
I would say so.
There's so many people I meet on the street now that's just like, I just got here, last week or 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh, really? And I just want to learn from them what they, where they're from, what they're doing, what they think of the town, and always give them advice. Like, here's all the things you need to check out right now.
Yeah. Where are you going to eat on this? I always say, where are you going to eat tonight? Where are you going to eat tonight? I also love the diversity of our economic makeup here, which is that some cities are really built on one thing, and we happen to have state jobs being the capital city, which is amazing. We have the University of Texas, which is an economy unto itself. We have tech, which we've had for a long, long time here, and then nowadays it's a legitimate financial and banking sector as well. And
CPG.
So absolutely. Yeah. So we have a healthcare now. Thank you.
Yeah.
I forget, but that's a legit. The medical school at UT was a game changer.
Yeah.
We've really expanded on that sector. So we're kind of insulated a bit from, I don't want to say the R word, recession. But it's because we do have a breadth of sort of different employers, different sectors that even if one starts to get a little soft, as they do, we're still propped up by others.
Well, it is definitely a different economy than the rest of the country.
I mean,
it does get affected. I mean, I was advising during the 2008, and that was tough. I remember I threw a pink slip festival.
Oh wow!
It's all about being Austin, right? What can we do for the community? It's on YouTube. You can go check it out. It's a pink slip festival, and it was something that for all the people that got laid off, I decided, what can we do for the community? Let's throw this thing for people that are kind of like on the outs, right? And they need some group. They need some community. And so we did that. We had 25-cent hot dogs and free beer, and brought the kids out and had music going on. So, but yes, I kind of got sidetracked, but that we are a different economy for sure. It's just different than the rest of the nation.
It's another thing to speak to about the differences of Austin and why we seem to kind of weather some storms better. It's not just because like it's a cool place to live. It is, but I'm proud to say that there's a lot of substance here. Yeah, a lot of substance.
Absolutely. And that's why it's being chosen as a headquarter
for sure.
And obviously, Whole Foods was homegrown here, so. Is it natural for it to be the headquarters? But now, how many other headquarters have now
Well, it's
moved?
definitely the headquarters of 5 Austin, so.
There you go.
But yes, to your point.
But now it's the headquarters for many of these large corporations.
Yeah, world recognized companies. Yeah. For sure.
So I think they see, and I hope they embrace that diversity.
Well, what's funny is you're saying this, it's like when you travel abroad or different places, it's like, where are you from? Do you say Texas or do you say Austin? I normally say Austin. I mean, and before I lived in Austin, I would say Texas, right? So there's that pride of Texas, but then there's also now there's that even specific pride. Austin.
For sure.
From Austin, because it's recognized as you.
And the fact that you can stop there and nobody says, where's that?
Right.
So it's definitely grown up in that way for sure.
Yeah, my dad would refuse to say Texas.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He's from Detroit, right? And then he would just always say Austin.
Yeah. Love it.
Right on.
Well, Chase, thanks so much for being on the show. We really just lucked out that you were in town for a couple weeks, and we were like, it's all about the art, so it's just perfect timing. And thanks for sharing the love of the art that you do, and applaud you for the work that you've done. It's just
thank you so much. I appreciate it
on the city for sure.
Yeah, this is a really fun show for me.
Enjoy the city, enjoy the art. Keep going out and finding the art because it's changing a lot, and find the next new thing.
Love it.
And be cool.
Love it. Wow, what a great conversation again. These just get better and better. I loved the trivia part of this, because I think this is something new that we need to continue doing, and I just love learning. So that was a nice addition.
Cool. I'm glad you like that. I'm gonna have a lot of fun doing that, and I hope Austinites learn a lot more about Austin as a result of it. For me, the fun part of this show is just talking to like a native Austinite who is actually has a great reference point to other cities to compare. And I really enjoyed hearing that
Austin's still home.
Austin's still home. Austin's still cool as we think it is. And even when away, people still consider it home like I would. So very cool show. Well, thanks again, Chase, for joining us on the show today and sharing all of your experiences with us. You're listening to Dan Dillard and Mark Strube, the co-hosts of Vibe Austin, and this has been a Founding Media podcast made possible by our sponsors, Austin Title, Vista Lending, House of Strube, and Nest Financial. Once again, check out their services in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on Vibe Austin. Until then, adios.